Hey, thank you for listening to Not for Heroes. I'm Yaakov Goldsmith, and today I had the best time sitting with two of my closest friends, Alex Wilton and Julia Dachs. In this episode, we talked about war and home and all that it means to balance a family and a country. On October 7th, thousands of eligible reservist soldiers found themselves outside of the country borders. With flights canceled and systems overwhelmed, many of them worked incredibly hard to find their way back into the country to give what they can. Alex is one of those people, and him and Julia really embody what it means to be a family in a time like this. As a couple, they are so fun, so thoughtful, so much chemistry, and in this episode, they show us what it means to support each other and to look out for each other. So I hope you enjoy as much as I did. All right, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
I feel like we have to get our laughs out.
Gotta get them in. Alex Wilton, hails from Teaneck, then Beit Shemesh. Julia Dachs from New York. Julia Dachs, Wilton. Tell me about yourselves.
Ladies first.
Sure. I'm originally from New York. Moved to Israel after I graduated from Barnard. Been living in Israel with my husband Alex ever since. We have two beautiful children and a massive dog who is a pain, but we love him.
Who some would consider to be our third child, but
Definitely.
Yes. First Eshet Chayal on the podcast.
Wow, what an honor.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And Alex, tell me about you.
Originally from Teaneck, New Jersey.
I heard of it.
Yeah. Moved to Beit Shemesh in 2006.
Married 11.
I was 12.
Nice.
Something like that. And
Shali Torah.
Shali Torah, went to YTA, represent with Rabbi Yaakov Goldsmith over here. Went to Shalavim, was in the army in Kfir. So I actually was supposed to go into Givati with my guys from Hesder, but I didn't want to go to a pluga of just Benishim on Machlaka Morevet, so I ended up drafting to Kfir. After I was supposed to just do the year and 4 of Hesder, I actually decided to Lachtom Vitur.
Nice.
And do the full 3 years.
You did Makim?
I did Makim. I spent the last year and 4 in the Chapak Samgad. And then that was it. Did the full 3 years afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're happy about it?
I'm very happy with the decision I made at the time. And
what type of miluim did you do before the war started?
Before the war, I was part of a unit called Shemesh, which is under the 460 Brigade, the tank brigade that day to day it's like a school for tanks.
Cool. And how often did you go?
I think we had like probably once or twice a year. It was a mixture of like a week of training just to kind of like, just remind the good muscles how to shoot a gun. Once in a while we do Kav. I remember we did Kav for like a month down on the border of Gaza and Egypt. That was fun. Jules, remember that? We were like just married.
Yeah, I came to visit you. That's how newly married we were.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was our first experience. Like me being Miluim and you experiencing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kids at the time.
You were down on the Egypt-Gaza border? Like
like around Neve.
Cool.
Yeah, so we were there for a month.
It's funny. Can't believe you visited. It's far drive.
I know, it's like a train. It's like a 2-hour train.
We sat in like some park in like the middle of the
Yeah, we played Sheish Besh in the park.
All right,
Really
that's the full army experience to play Sheish Besh, by the way.
Yeah, but maybe did a Kafesh Achora or something like that.
Yeah, it's cute.
But yes, I've been doing Milum with Shemesh for I was doing Milum with Shemesh basically up until the war.
Yeah, so I think you have an interesting story, and we'll get to everything that has to do with couples and marriage. But you were in America when the war started, so tell me what that was like. How did you find out? What was it like? What did it feel like?
I'll take that one. I found out first.
Okay.
Basically, a little background. We usually go to the States every summer, but we had a baby at the end of June, so we went this time for the Chagim.
Shout out to Adam.
Yeah.
Hey, he's 3 months old.
He was 3 months old when we were in America. I wake up at the crack of dawn with a newborn, and I walk into my brother in the hallway, who shows me, well, first he says, Israel's at war. It was really dramatic. I was like, what are you talking about? I just woke up. And he shows me a video of a Hamas terrorist holding an RPG on his shoulder, ringing a doorbell in of a house.
Horrifying.
And that like traumatized me forever. And then he started showing me everything on Twitter. And there's so much because we're 7 hours behind. And by then I woke up Alex and you jumped out of bed. You're like, what? We were just in complete shock.
Yeah, that is shocking. By the way, you agreed to watch the videos. You told me you're a video watcher.
Yeah, unfortunately.
No, so everyone treats it differently. I couldn't. I felt like it was too hard for me.
Yeah, there was a point like a couple weeks later, like, wow, I had too much.
It's really
hard. Saw too much.
It's really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a car crash. You can't look away, but
everyone relates to it differently.
It's not really doing any good.
Yeah, but okay.
Yeah.
Because you watched a lot.
I love to get rid of Julia's Twitter.
You're still on it all the time.
That's so bad.
It's so stressful. No, but everyone copes with it differently. I had a time where I was like addicted to the news.
Yeah.
So I go.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think I've chilled out.
So it's interesting. I think in the beginning we were all obsessive with our screens, but after a certain point, I remember exactly what the turn point was. I disconnected my notifications from Ynet and.
Well, you're also involved in it. You're there.
Right. Well, this is even before I got called up, which is I guess a story in itself.
Yeah. Wait. So let's backtrack. Okay. So you're understanding the severity of the situation.
Yeah.
And how did it feel, like being Israeli but being away, relating to the Americans there?
I was just like frozen. Like, what do we do? Like, I obviously have to go home, but how do I go home? Like, what is home? What's happened? Like, we just had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
It didn't cross my mind right away that Alex would be getting called out.
Right.
I don't know why.
Did it cross your mind?
I think I was just so in shock.
No, it's shocking. Did it cross your mind?
Of course.
Yeah.
Right away.
What did you think? What happened?
I didn't have time to like process anything.
That's fair.
Oh, yeah.
I guess the shock of it all just sort of took over like the way we think about anything. Also, keep in mind it was Chag, so like there was an element of like we weren't on our phones anyway. And when you walked into the room and said like Alex, like we're at war. Okay, like you said, I jumped out of bed. I started looking through my WhatsApps, and I think
the tears up again.
Talk about a therapy session. How long do we have the room? No, it's raw. I mean,
it's raw.
This is the reality situation, and I guess we don't take a lot of time to definitely debrief it all. But yeah, like from that moment on, for me, it was just like pure and utter, just like shock, chaos. I'm like sifting through my messages, and I'm trying to. It's interesting. You said like you didn't think I'd get called up. For me, it was like it's crazy. For me, it was finding the right balance between just like how much do I share with you, and also like we're not at home. I'm not like picking up my gear and going. I'm like I remember there was this massive balance between like how much do I push myself to get there. It's not a normal thing to like want to push yourself into a place of danger. At the same time, you just can't sit still and like hang out in the serene like Wilton, Connecticut.
Yeah,
still is hard.
I think we should also talk about how a lot of people didn't get the official tzav yet. Everybody just kind of ran up.
Totally.
And so until the army actually got organized and was able to send out a tzav, you were kind of in limbo. You were without a tzav. You weren't in the country.
Right.
Flights were weird. And it
right.
was like that
so
whole process.
So basically so what happened was after I got after you ran in and told me what was going on, so I turned my phone on, and so like tons and tons of WhatsApp flowing. And I mentioned I was, at the time I was with Khirmish under the 460 brigade. And so I reached out to like my officer who at the time continued to be my officer throughout the war, at certain stages of the war. But I asked him like, what's going on? And like all my friends were getting the tzav, and like I just had not yet gotten my tzav, which was weird. And it got to a point where I did have some friends that didn't get a tzav. They're like, like I'm just going down to base. I'm like getting ready, like.
Right, but you
it's
didn't
a matter
have
of
that
time.
luxury because you were across the country.
Exactly.
So you weren't going to fly across if you didn't have the tzav.
Exactly. So it was more of a waiting game for me.
Which sounds hard.
Yeah. Suck. Because like on one hand, like I said, like everybody wanted to do something after October 7th. Everybody wanted to play their part. But at the same time, leaving your family, because Julia was in the States with the kids, and Julia was saying like there was no real knowing of what is home, like what am I coming back to, like it was obvious that we weren't going to bring Julia and the kids home. So it was like, okay, I'll go,
But how do you make that impossible decision to like leave your kids and wife, risk your life?
Yeah, basically. Like, when am I gonna? I mean, everyone was probably thinking at the time, like, when am I ever gonna see my family again? But for me, it's kind of like a tarte mashma, you know? It's like when we get out for a week or whatever it is, like for a day or two to like refresh, like, where's my family, you know? They're, thank God, still, I guess, see more safe, but just different. So
we talked about, well, I'll check back in as we go, but you talked about you didn't know how much to share with Julia.
Yeah.
What were you holding back? What were you telling?
So I think what happened was, so I guess going back to like just my friends getting called up, or friends that hadn't got called up from my unit were just going down. At the time we're part of Chirmesh, they all go down to base, and lo and behold, we start to understand that Chirmesh no longer exists. There was talks, I think, leading up to the war that they were going to dismantle Chirmesh altogether, and they were going to create a new pluga for us within a certain gdud, within the Chativa of Arbam Shishim. It wasn't yet like known what it was going to be. And I think that Imun Hakama was supposed to be like in November of 2023. So it was supposed to be, I guess, a month after what happened. But because there was such a balagan, everybody got to base, and they basically started to create a unit for us, just like
on the fly.
Yeah, with all the balagan, with everything going on. And I think because of that, my tzav and a few others got sort of, just fell through the crack. But because my situation of being, not in Israel, I couldn't do much about it. So it was like this weird, like, mix of how much am I trying to force myself to get there versus just being patient and knowing that I'm sure sooner than later I'll get called up.
And you didn't feel like you could share that tension with her? Like,
you couldn't hide it. It was very obvious.
Anyone who knows Alex knows he's not a good emotion hider, which is a great quality.
What makes you say that?
It's a great quality.
Alex wears his heart on his sleeve for better and for worse.
Yeah.
And I would say the time in between until he actually got the official job, he was very mentally not with us.
Totally. What's your policy on also, like, do you want him to share everything with you, pour it all out? Or even to this day, there's a rumor that he might get called. Do you want that rumor?
In the beginning, I wanted to know everything. Yeah. And then...
Or something, he did something hard. Do you want to hear that?
I do want to hear it at the end of the day, but I want to hear everything after the fact. Especially with the Army when they're always back and forth. Like, they'll say, you're going home on Thursday, and then Thursday rolls around, and you're not going home on Thursday. Yeah. You're going home next Thursday. Like, things are always changing, and it gets your hopes up, and you're just constantly being thrown back and forth. So sometimes waiting until things are said and done.
I even remember, like, there was a time I was supposed to be called, like, on a certain day. It was like a Wednesday. And we woke up Tuesday night, whatever. It's intense. We're saying our goodbyes. Like, Wednesday morning, I wake up. I got a text like 6 a.m. It's pushed off.
Right.
And, like, even though that's happy, it was like,
I was thinking about that this past round of Miluim. Like, how many times can we say goodbye? Like, knowing that there's a chance you're going to die. How many times can you do that?
Totally.
Like, and then, okay, so... Like, I barely get up and say goodbye to you when you leave anymore. But, like, what happens if you actually do die that time? And then you're like, I wish I got up and gave him a hug. You know? Like, it's not a normal thing to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way every time I go to the supermarket.
also.
Yeah. No, I remember being physically, I was obviously with you guys at your parents' house, but mentally, emotionally, I was spending a lot of time, I think I remember in the basement, just, like, trying to figure out my situation. And there was this balance of trying to bring you in and let you know what's going on, but also hiding. Wow. I remember hiding a lot from you, like, because I was trying to find the right balance of, like, making my way there, but also, well.
Also, and it's dragged out. It gets hard.
No, I was trying to protect you guys.
And also, as your wife, like, I obviously was proud of you and wanted you to go for sure. Like, I knew it was something you had to do, but also as your wife, I was like, I'm not going to send you there.
Right. I actually remember...
If you make the decision, I'll support it. But I'm not going to be like, you should go.
Right.
Totally.
So it got to a point where, like, my tzav was getting dragged out, and two things happened. One, if you remember this, one of our dear friends who I was in touch with was telling me that, like, his unit needs some help. Right? I remember. Yeah. So, like, and, like, the type of tafkid they needed was all the things I was, like, musmach for. So, like, to me, it would made all the sense in the world. I'd be going in with, a friend of mine, and it's a job that they need me for. So it's mashmuti. And I also happened to have been, like, at the time knowing that, like, before the Timrun actually happened before we actually went into Gaza, like I knew that he was part of like the Uqda of Gaza, so of course they're going to be going in. Like what that meant, I don't know, but like, Julia, what did he say? It was like, why put yourself in that situation if you don't need to? Like, you'll get called up and you get called up. Otherwise, like, just stay and relax.
It's like you're going to get called up, period. We're at war. We know you're going to get called up at this point.
Right.
Don't insert yourself into, like, the most dangerous possible situation just so that you can be doing something immediately. Like, just wait your turn. You'll get called up.
Yeah, but there was no, like, rational thinking at the time. So we're just like...
I know, you feel helpless. You want to do whatever you can.
I also do think that there's a difference in perspectives. Like, some people see the army as, like, they know the right decision and where everyone needs to go, and you can just trust that they'll send you where they need you. And some people see it as, like, I have to craft my own role.
Right.
I'm going to force myself into this place or this place, which is good for me. So
but I think both are right. Because
totally.
at the end of the day, we were shocked on October 7th.
Totally.
The army included.
Yeah, from an organizational perspective, like, where do people go? How do you organize all those new influx of people? Yeah, totally. So then, okay, you had a moment where you flew.
So then, exactly. So it's just to speed up, I guess, the first part of the getting actually into Miluim. I got to a point where I just physically couldn't be in the States anymore, you know. I guess too much had happened to friends and family, and I just felt like I needed to figure out my situation. I just couldn't do much from being in the States. And I think we had our flight booked home anyway. So I just decided to take that flight knowing that I'm just going to go there for like a week or so, figure out my situation, see friends, see family, and then, just kind of take it as it goes. But, you know, if they tell me that it's time to go, I just stay. And if not, then I figured I'd come back to the States until, you know, I was ready to be called. And ultimately that's what happened. I came home, I saw friends, I saw family.
You visited me on my army base.
Oh, wow.
We weren't doing much at the time. We were like, training, getting ready for going in. It was going to be like at least another 3-4 more weeks before we actually went into Gaza.
Wow.
But you visited me. You were talking also about you were like, it's so hard that I'm not doing anything right now and all my friends are doing something.
Yeah, I mean, it's friends, your nation, like any soldier can relate to this, especially combat soldier. You spend your, however long your service is, you know, training to fight. It's like you become a lawyer and, you know, you want to be in court. You want to be taking on the big cases. This is like your big case. This is, you know, as a soldier, you're trained to do what you want to do. And then all of a sudden the day comes, you're like, all right, like, no. You know, it's kind of like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I kind of got the clarity that I needed, that it was a matter of time.
Okay. From
my officer, at least the officer that I thought I was going to be going into combat with in the first round, but we'll get to that soon. But basically, told me it was going to be a few more weeks because they were just, what happened was on, you know, October 7th, October 8th, there's probably about 130% of like a giyus, whether it was called up or not. People just went, and there were none of guns, there were none of helmets.
Oh, right, we talked about this. Right.
And that was like the main thing. They didn't have they were like overflowing with sadak and
manpower.
Yeah, with manpower. There just wasn't a need. You know, this is also something like the army didn't need me. You know, I was like, I felt like wasn't me, but then like I quickly realized like no, like I'm part of a bigger, you know, of a bigger, I guess, organization. I'm part of a bigger picture. And like, you know, when they need me, I'll come. But until then, like, you know, and then I came to that conclusion, and yeah, I flew back to the States, came home again. Like I came back to my family again.
And what was that like?
I think that time around I came back because I had a little more clarity in my situation. I felt, you know, what it was like to be in Israel at the time. I think another reason why I went back was just also not to have so much of a shock of when the time that I do get called up, to go straight from Wilton, Connecticut to Gaza, you know, which ultimately happened.
So tell me what happened. Okay, so let's skip ahead to when that ultimately happened.
Anyways, I come back to the States. I must have been home. How long was I home for, Julia? When I say home.
Oh, short.
Not even. I think it was a week and change.
From your perspective, he was still out of it. It's still like...
No, he was definitely more regua in the sense, like, he knew his time was coming, but it was also a weird dance of, like, how am I present with my kids right now in Wilton, Connecticut? Like, the most peaceful place on earth when the world around me is, you know,
Yeah.
to...
Were you struggling with that also?
Yeah. I would be in the supermarket or anywhere I went. We went to the zoo on like October 8th. And we're looking around. We're like, what is everyone doing? Like, how are people living their lives?
Oh my God, the zoo.
Yeah. And we were glued to our phones, but also trying to like laugh with our kids.
Yeah, you have to. You have to keep going.
I would just look at anyone and everyone and just be like, what is your life?
Yeah.
You're a zookeeper. Like, do you know what's going on right now?
Especially American Jews.
Yeah. Yeah, also with that was really hard.
Yeah, there was a massive disconnect. Like, Jews in the States wanted to do everything they could, but they didn't really know what it was like.
It kind of felt like the olden days when we talk about the establishment of the state, where like the American Jews were good for their money, you know, like sending aid and sending money, but like the real Israelis were there in uniform fighting a war, and it's like nothing changed.
Yeah,
which is so weird.
And then they're the zookeepers.
Yeah,
the holy zookeepers. Okay.
Yeah. So,
how much did your kids know at the time? Like, when did they figure out?
My kids still don't know.
That's fair.
I mean, Sophia's 3 years old. She knows that Tati goes to the tzava, but she has no idea what that even means.
Right.
Like, she knows he wears uniform. She's never asked a question about a gun. When there's sirens, she never asks questions.
Does she get stressed out?
No.
Okay.
She has no idea.
Good. I come back with, a lollipop or a toy. So I think her association was like, oh, Tati's leaving, but he's going to come back with, presents.
Yeah.
There's definitely trauma there. Like the fact that Tati can leave and come back at any time and leave for weeks or months.
Oh, wow. Talk about the separation anxiety on our kids right now.
There's a lot of trauma there, but it doesn't.
How do you manage that being the one who stays?
I don't know. I just you have to push through. You keep carrying on.
Yeah.
I can't explain to her. Like, I say Tati's out there protecting us, but she's like, she doesn't even ask questions. Like, from who? From what?
Right.
It's just a fact. Like, Tati goes and Tati comes back.
Love that his name is Tati.
Yeah.
Mame.
Tati and Mame.
I think it's also important to understand, like, when all this is going on and, like, I'm so drenched in my own world, my own experience, like, most of the time, I'm not even considering or thinking, like, what's Julia going through? Like, what's Julia's experience? How is she taking all this? She's the one that's trying to be with the kids and trying to keep a level of sanity herself.
Yeah. How do you manage to, like, maintain your independence, your personal goals, and your career?
Okay, my career. Thank God I have a very flexible job and people are very understanding. So I can work during the day when my kids are gone, but you just kind of keep pushing through as if nothing's happening.
Okay.
Which I'm very good at suppressing my emotions. So that's like an average day for me.
A good tool when used well.
Yeah. And I talk about it with friends who are experiencing the same thing and friends who aren't experiencing the same thing. But there's not much you do. You carry on.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's just part of life.
Talk about opposite attracts.
Yeah.
So you haven't made any moves to establish boundaries? Like, when he gets back from the army, he's on a Yitzhak. Does he suddenly have to do more pickup, more kid stuff so you could have
I need like
break?
An immediate break.
For sure.
You do the next pickup and drop off for a day or two, and then we can get back into the swing of things. Because I do know that like he's not going on vacation when he leaves.
Right.
Like he also needs a break when he comes
tired.
home.
Right. But you'll take those 2 days.
I need the physical break. Like being at home is really hard. With kids this young.
Moms are the real
heroes.
I've said this, I think, throughout the vast majority of the war. Once I really came to like the realization, like obviously going to war is more dangerous, but being home is so much harder. Being home with the kids, like
what's the main challenge you would say of being home?
I think our kids are going through a trauma that like we don't even realize because they're not old enough to express it. But you see, like Alex will go to the supermarket and Adam, he's 1 year old, will come running to the door trying to open it and hysterically crying.
Yeah.
He doesn't know Alex is going to the supermarket. He could be leaving for a month.
Right. That's so it's like hard.
They act out in ways that also because they're toddlers, but also because they're going through something huge.
Right.
And you're the one that deals with that much more.
Yeah, and like, why are we capable of dealing with this?
And then I come back. I come back from Miluim, and there's also a level of like a lack of patience or even understanding, and just like takes time to get back into this sort of thing just with your family.
So how do you get back into this?
I think I just finished my third sevev of Miluim, and I think we get smarter every time.
Okay.
It comes down to, I think, just like in any relationship, and especially like in a marriage and a partnership, it's communication. It's understanding, like, you know, what I'm coming home to. What are Julia's needs? What, you know, where is she at emotionally? Where is she at physically? Like, when was it? I think it was in the middle of like the second seven, like, and I told you I was coming home or something, and like all of a sudden, like, you said on the way home, you just felt like this weight.
Oh, my body like shuts down when I know Alex is on the way home. Like all of a sudden, it's like I can't move.
Right.
Totally.
I'm going. I hear Alex is on his way home, and I'm like,
she stops.
I can't get up. I can't lift a finger. I can't wake up.
So I've learned over time more to understand what Julia needs from me.
But in the beginning, it's like a shock. You come home, you're like,
yeah, but it's tough for me too, because as much as I want to be hanging out with my kids 24/7, and there's actually another whole element of like when you come back from Miluim, like all of a sudden, like your perspective on life as a whole, and that's a whole different topic. But you like come home and like you think like, yeah, like of course I'm gonna come home and help out Julia the entire time and like let her sleep until 11 and take the kids to Khan and pick them up and do all the groceries. And like you get back and you're just like, oh my god, like what is what's I can't do anything. Like
it's like we both just become
yeah.
I totally.
So I think in those moments it's really just about like communicating with each other, like, you know, where are you at, like what can you do? And I think Julia's done a great job of like understanding, you know, as much as I'd want to come back and be 100% a father and 100% a husband, like it takes time to get there, and it's patience, it's communication. I think it's what's been helping us understanding where each other's at.
So at this point, you're in a flow. You understand each other. Do you have any rituals like before you leave or right when you get home? No. I think if anything, it's gotten so. I mean, unfortunately, it's gotten so casual that, like Julia said, I leave from Wilton. She doesn't like get up and say goodbye. I think it's fair. Okay, back to the first seven.
Let's go back to the first seven, because that is where you actually took notes and left me a letter, I believe.
Yeah.
It's too hard to write. It's too hard to allow Tully to write one. It's too hard to encapsulate.
Plus, like, what picture are you going to choose?
I'll write in the letter. Make sure to use a good-looking picture of me for the Utala.
Oh, I have my picture.
You got it?
Yeah. Anyway, so I get back to where. All right, so I come back to the States.
Tell me when you got this off.
I come back to the States. I'm home for about probably less than a week. And then I finally get the call saying, Alex, you're needed for a specific pluga, but in a different unit. So what happened was we were maxed out in the unit that I was supposed to go to, which is the Yachsam, which is a convoy unit within the 460 Brigade. But as the war was evolving, they opened up a pluga within one of the tank units, 532 tank unit, and they opened up a company for reservists to basically come and fight alongside the tanks. So that was, I would say, a shock as an understatement to like get a call and like knowing that like I'm not even going to the place where, like, keep in mind this near La Pluga, I didn't know. I knew one guy from like my army service, but other than that, I was by myself. So that's that really in itself was kind of frustrating. Like, you know,
and you were patient, waiting for the call. You're like, when I get the call, I'll go. But now you got the call. It's not the ideal call you were hoping for.
I just, in my mind, I like, again, when I came back from Israel to the U.S., I'm like, okay, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to go to the Yachsam. I'm going to go to this unit that I'm supposed to go to. And then I'll be there and I'll be in it. But then all of a sudden it's like, I get this call and they're like, yeah, so you're needed. Because I was Mishubatz to the 460 Brigade at the time, but I was sort of floating. And when they were opening up this like pluga, they're like, okay, this is where we need you. So there were a few other, I guess, floaters at the time. And long story short, I got called up to be part of, at the time they called it the Peten within 532. And I got this call on, so this was, this was the timeline. I get called up. I get the call on a Tuesday, confirmed it on a Wednesday, flew on a Thursday. I landed. Oh, remember I landed and I had your vest. I landed on a Friday.
Yes.
My dad picked me up, I think like an hour before Shabbat.
I was still not in Gaza yet. I was going to go in a couple weeks later.
Yeah, so I brought you a
Thanks
vest.
to Julia's family.
Thank you, Julia's family. Yeah, so that was also part of it. Part of my like not going to get called up was that we're like, am I going to have my equipment like mentally ready, physically ready, all these things. So shout out to Julia's family and friends for helping me get that stuff together, and also helped a few other friends along the way. So yeah, I came to right from the airport. You were like finishing up a drill.
But tell me when you got the tzav, how did you tell Julia? How did you feel?
Oh,
scary. It's like,
I think at that point, we were like sort of ready for it. I mean, it was real. I think we knew that like I couldn't stay where I was. We knew there was something like we had to do. So like, I think at that point there was a little more level of acceptance about the situation. And I think the first couple weeks leading up to me flying to Israel and coming back was just like Julia said, pure chaos. And like I mentally wasn't there, emotionally wasn't there. But I think when I came back, I was a little more like with you guys.
Yeah, I like I said, you were more agua, but it was definitely still present. And then when the time actually came for you to go, we're like, okay. Like we all understand that this is what has to happen. We were prepared. We had days of going back and forth, which is a luxury that not everybody has.
Correct.
On the other hand, it's also so much tension. It's like anticlimactic.
But that's what made it easier too. It was like, how many more days can I do this? Of like,
I remember you kind of wanted me to go.
Yeah, I really get that.
Yeah, because I wasn't helping you. I was actually I remember this now. Like, we had these conversations throughout those first few weeks. Like, I was doing more damage than good.
Yeah, so I was bringing the mood down in the house.
Yeah,
no, that's
you weren't helpful.
I wasn't with the kids. Yeah, for sure.
And you were dealing with your own stuff, which is, it makes sense, but it was not helpful.
No, for sure.
When it was time to go, we're like, okay.
Right.
It was obviously a really sad goodbye. There was a lot of tears. I think even my parents were like, you guys should go out to dinner before you. We're like, I can't go out to dinner.
Right.
I can't function.
Right.
But we said goodbye, and like,
what did we do? What did we do the beach?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we went to the beach with my family, including Alex. No, not to like have fun on the beach, just like get out of the house and stop like being in misery. Also, the kids needed to get out, and that's like when rumors were still flying about the Chatufim, and nobody really knew what was going on. And Alex just like was miles down the beach. He just couldn't be around anyone, and it was time to go.
And not to be too like now, like remembering the setting, not to be like too dramatic, like living in a movie, but it was like it was almost like too perfect of a setting.
Like on a
we're taking it all in on the beach.
Yeah, like it was like just the air was too perfect.
Yeah, everything.
The kids were chilling. They had no idea. Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
They had no idea what was flying, and all I'm thinking is like,
you were totally in a different world.
Yeah, you're in a different universe.
Yeah.
So it's time to go. So you got on the plane, you went.
Yeah, I went. So again, so the timeline was called up Tuesday, confirmed Wednesday, flew Thursday, landed Friday.
Yeah.
So you, Shabbat I spent by my parents. Sunday morning went down to base, and Monday morning a la boker, I was already in Gaza.
Yeah.
So like, keep in mind, like when I say going from like Wilton to Gaza,
it's a book Alex is gonna write one day.
Yeah, like I literally went from Wilton to Gaza. Like there was no drills, no imunim, no training. Like
so went in on Sunday or on Shabbos, I remember.
I went down to base on Sunday, and
you
Monday
saw me on a Friday.
Yeah, so Sunday morning I went down to base. They gave me the Negev. I went to the shooting range. I made sure it was
it shot
fast, like that. I was
calibrated.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're not that night. They're like, all right, you're going in, and I'm like,
that's really middle time.
Yeah. So like on the one hand, I'm actually kind of grateful for, because I then like learned that there was so much balagan and chaos even throughout the training and the drills and everything leading up to going in, that like there was so much unknown that like it actually broke like the spirit within our machlaka that I was a part of. And we started with like 20 something guys. I think when I went in there was like maybe 14. So it was more like a seventh, and we were like a machlaka, but that's how we operated. But it was definitely, it's looking back at it, it's kind of like I missed all the crap and I just went for the tachless.
Mm-hmm.
But like mentally, I think going straight from like I said before, Wilton to Gaza. It's like, what do you say? I was gonna.
I'm gonna write a book about it. It's going from like the silence and the perfectness of my parents' backyard to complete destruction and bombs.
And like her parents' backyard is an oasis. It's like it's forest. It's just like this. You can like hear yourself like think. It's like
beautiful. And you're still there. You got the text from Alex on a Monday. I'm going in. Love you. You're not bringing your phone, right?
No. So I didn't know how long ago. Again, I didn't even understand what I was going to do properly. They just called me up, like, and I didn't get any of like. I had a brief call with like my head commander, like what we're doing, but like it wasn't like you know. I didn't have
right. Usually in the army, you have like.
I went. They were my guys. My guys were already in. So mind you, I when I got back when I got to base on Sunday, they were already in on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were already in, and I didn't even meet any of these guys yet.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. I knew one, like I said, I knew one of the guys, and that guy happened to have also been out. He was like, he claimed he had some back problems. He was just waiting for me, I think, because like he was a close friend of mine. Yeah, he's my guy. He still is my guy. Shout out to Baruti, my boy Baruti. Yeah, he's my army wife.
Yeah. Threat.
For sure.
Yeah, threat.
Yeah.
And you got the text, and you just told your parents, like, I guess he's going in.
Yeah, and then everyone kind of walks on eggshells around you, and you're checking your phone all the time, and you have the worst thoughts crossing your mind, but you're also with a newborn and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put Sophia in Chabad in Gan, in Wilton, Connecticut.
Awesome.
Shout out Westport.
You said they were great to
In
you.
Westport,
They were really helpful. And
super
nice
helpful.
Yeah.
Amazing. It was great for Sophia. We got a babysitter. Her name is Christine for Adam, which was also weird because she is like, you know, an outsider. She doesn't know what's going on. So you're trying to explain. You're trying to get her on your side also.
Totally.
This whole conflict.
Yeah, you're stepping on eggshells.
It's just weird. And then I'm up all night with this newborn and I'm constantly looking at my phone. Like if something, and you're waking up every morning to all the soldiers that died, you know? God. And you're like, how am I going to find out in America?
Can I tell you something coming? You're never going to find out about someone
from the
that
news.
You know from the news.
Yeah.
They have to call you.
Don't download Telegram. Whatever. But I was, you know, the worst thoughts cross your mind. And you're like, if something does happen, how am I going to find out? It's not like a soldier is going to come knocking on my parents' door. I'm in America. And then that's also like, you're so removed from the Israeli experience. And you're like, but I am Israeli. But I'm American.
Right. I also feel like the setting that you were in, and your parents are the most incredible people. Shout out to my in-laws. So supportive. They, you know, really tried. And I remember for myself and for you, they were trying their best to be sensitive to like accommodate to our needs. But at the same time, as much as they get it, you know, they also...
Yeah, there's a level of...
Right.
Remove.
Right. So you're like living under a roof with someone who gets you because, you know, they're your parents. But at the same time, it's not really their life. Right. It's a part of their life.
It became their life.
It definitely
I think they're actually a lot more Israeli now.
For sure.
Right.
Now for sure. But I'm talking about like in the beginning of
Yeah.
Like
there was a part of me just like, nobody understands me.
I even remember like, I remember.
That's really fair. I think a lot of people feel that way.
I remember someone like was saying like, I'm sorry that you got called up. I remember maybe like,
right. Like
that.
that's not the attitude.
I was thinking like,
you don't get it.
No, of course. Like, apologize. Like,
yeah,
I gotta get out of here. Like, you know, like.
Yeah. So there was a level of just like checking my phone all the time because you don't know how you're gonna find out. And then I would try to see friends once in a while. But it's weird to be with American friends in America when your husband's in a war in Israel.
Yeah.
And all your friends are in Israel and going through stuff that you're supposed to be going through because I live there.
Right.
But I find myself in America, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm very blessed that I was able to have this outlet of like, Sophia wasn't gone for 4 months in America and I had all my needs met. I didn't cook a meal for 4 months, but it's complicated.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
We spoke about that a few times, like before I left, like what should we do? Like about you coming.
There was no way I was going to go back. Bring 2 little kids who don't have gone because of all the sirens. A big dog I would have to take care of and be by myself I would have your family, but without my family who would be worried sick about me. Woods is our dog. We put him up at a pension.
Well, eventually he went to a pension. He started out, because initially this was also supposed to be a 3-week trip to the States for Sukkot or whatever.
Started out at your neighbors.
Yeah, neighbors. I think he went to like 3 or 4 different families. God bless him. He ended up going to some pension, and he was happy there overall. But
his trauma is the worst of all.
Yeah, he doesn't understand.
We get in, I was like, this dog is out the door, like before you can blink.
He's knocking over other people on the way. He's running. I think also he knows to go to the meat class.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Dogs also hear like better than us.
My kids are so slow. I'm like, come on, guys, come on. Woods is downstairs already, shaking in the corner,
waiting for us.
He's not like one of those classic dogs who like protects the kid. Yeah. He's like, I'm protecting myself.
He'll smack at him out of the way. Move.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he's so cute.
God bless him. So yeah, that's. I honestly think, I don't know if there's a thing for like dog therapy, but if the army subsidizes dog therapy, please let me know, anybody, because.
What was the next time you heard from him? After that Monday that he went in.
I can't remember the details, honestly.
So the first he saw was the longest, no phones.
Yeah, so exactly. So I remember more of this also because one of the suggestions that were given to me was that you should journal. You should write things down, whether it's just the way you feel or events or what have you. And a lot of the times, like, there's so much that happens, and it's small details. It's anything from like what I ate on a certain day or like a funny story that happened to like an actual experience during an operation. So there's a little bit of everything in between. I wrote down every time I called Julia. I don't have my little notepad with me now, but I remember when I was in. So the first 7 lasted from like the beginning of November until basically beginning of January. So I was in for around 2 months. And in that time, I spent probably about 2 to 3 weeks at a time in. And then I'd have a break of like a couple days out. And in that time that I was in, I didn't have my phone, but I tried to get in touch with Julia at least once a week. Like I remember trying like every Tuesday to like reach out to her, but like the service in Gaza was just horrific. And I was using like through WhatsApp, of course, and like it just the conversations were very quick, just kind of like hello. And I remember like I wanted you to send pictures of the kids, and like it took forever to load. So like,
oh, it's sad.
Yeah, but if anything, I realized as the more I got on the phone with them, the more it set me back, because
phones are so hard.
It's the worst.
I think Sophia, she obviously didn't forget about you, but we like really downplayed your existence for 4 months.
Right.
Like in the beginning, she'd say, "Where's Tati?" And then it kind of slowly faded out. And even when you would call me, I wouldn't necessarily put her on the phone.
Yeah, I remember that.
It would set her back. She would act weird at
Right, I get that.
And that was weird.
What about you? Were phone calls for you hard? Because for me, they're hard.
All I wanted to know is that he was alive and like hear his voice and just know that he's okay relatively. Right. And then like,
right.
That was
but anytime I spoke with them, I think you like, I mean, it's different, I think, with kids, but like when I spoke with Sophia, I'm like, I got like taken out of the zone. Yeah. Like there were times I was debating to call you guys and I just didn't, because I knew that if I did, it set me back.
She would say like heart-wrenching things. Tati, come home.
It is like, heart-wrenching.
You don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I've been fighting a war in the middle of it.
Yeah. You know. Exactly. So we were definitely in touch a bit, but not like I tried.
Just check-ins.
Yeah, it was more check-ins and that's really it. But
like, how much detail can you really give over the phone?
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Really is.
So. It was like, we'll talk about it all when you come out.
Okay.
Or not. But yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I actually didn't share anything with you until
you came back.
Until I came back, right? Like I'm saying, in between like sevens.
Yeah, barely. I would ask you like any close calls, and you're like, "Nah, we're good." And then when he came home and started to read his journal to me, it was very clear that there were a lot of close calls, and I was like, I did not realize the extent to which this was going on.
Totally. Did knowing the close calls make it harder the next time he went in?
So he actually switched jobs, I think, the next time he went in.
That's true.
Right. At that point, I'd already.
Okay. Good.
So yeah, I mean, I'll take you through the first round, like the first 7 briefly. But we had 3 main knisot that extended for about a week and a half to like 3 at a time, and each time it got, I'd say, more and more intense. We started out in like Shati. There, we were actually, for the most part, even like on our open Hummers. We were mainly doing deliveries within the strip. Like we'd have all the reinforcements sent in, and then we would deliver those to like different machlakot within our pluga. So like we were working together with Nachal, Sadir Nachal. They were like holding down the gizra, like, you know, all the way up in the front of the line. So we'd bring them their stuff. We were also in charge of making sure like any injured were like brought back to the border. And then like at one point, this is kind of what really shifted the intensity for us, is that we had a drone, and there were definitely some guys in my Tsevet who were a little more ambitious. To me, it was kind of like, I'm going to do what's told of me. I'm going to, go on missions, but I'm not looking for trouble. Most of the guys in my Tsevet who were, honestly, all of them are like my brothers now. A lot of them, we all came from, like I said, from different places within the army, backgrounds and ages and everything. And a lot of the guys were young. And they were, I'm not to say that, God forbid, that everyone has something to lose and someone to lose.
For sure. But you're the only one with a wife and kids.
I was I was actually the only one with, I think there was one other married guy, but the only one with
one or two.
There was another guy that joined us in the second Seva, but
that's hard.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that disconnect. So like there were times that like we'd be about to go on a mission, and I actually like call out my officer, be like, "Do you realize that you're sending us into like a strip to like conquer a strip, but we have no we have no backup, and we're 14 guys. Like, what happens if something happens?" Like,
it goes back to the conversation of like, how much do you push forward on your own independent volition and initiative, and how much do you trust that the system is going to take care of the planning? And like, you need both. Like, what did you said it, Beth? You need both.
Yeah.
About the like, how do you know if you should push into the right unit or yeah.
So anyway, so the first round I'd say was actually the more like calm round, but again, so we got drones. The Gadood as a whole started to rely on us a little more, trust us a little more. Which again, as a soldier, on the one is exciting because it means that you're getting a little more responsibility, but as an individual who's not necessarily looking for trouble, you kind of just go with it. You just kind of like take it for what it is, but you also try to. There were a few times where I stuck up for myself and said, like, guys, like, let's rethink this.
Good for you. That's hard, by the way, because you're afraid of like the reputation it coming off like you're.
Yeah, I mean, listen. At the end of the day, there's the big picture of what the army is trying to do, and they have certain goals that they set for themselves, whether it's conquering certain areas or, of course, bring back the hostages, and the idea is that we're going to do anything and everything we can to do so. But like,
there's things you're trained for and things you're not.
Yeah, my officer like gives us this like gives us the kuda. He gives us this like order kuda of this mission, and then I'm like, wait a second, but where's our back? He's like, oh, like he didn't have like how can you be an officer and like not ask those questions beforehand and then bring this out? Does it
on the other hand, sometimes what makes officers rise up is like that, like tunnel vision, push ahead.
Right.
I've heard, unfortunately.
So again, there's a big picture of like what we're trying to do as an army, but then on an individual level, it's like, okay, I will do everything that's told of me because that's what you do as a soldier. But also like, if I'm not going to sit around and not speak up for myself because I do have wife and kid at home. And
good for you. Yeah. Okay, so what happened in the end?
So after that first Seva, we got the impression that the Gadood expected more of us. We had drones at that point. They gave us like certain equipment. So the whole idea going forward is that we were going to be close surveillance for the tanks. So like the tanks would go in, we'd be right next to the tanks because their scope of vision is broader. Like they see like far ahead, but they can't see around them. So that's basically what happened with us from the second part that we went in. At that point, we went into, it was Beit Lahia and Jabalia area. We were there for like a week plus, or actually closer to 2 weeks. And that time we were focused on, a lot of it was actually like missions of the Khativa as a whole would be going into schools and hospitals and taking out, all the civilians that were there, separating the men that we would then, it was actually pretty cool. They had this like technology that they can basically, like face technology, they can like already determine facial recognition.
Especially from all the videos and the footage that was
right.
on October 7th.
So they set up this massive operation. It's called like an akaz. It's like a barricade almost, where they let the women and children go through basically, but all the men, they bring to like this area, take a picture of their face, facial recognition. Some they automatically know like, okay, this guy was involved in October 7th. This guy is, part of, Hamas or whatever it may be. And they arrest them. And it was actually, there were a lot of successful missions. Definitely paid a price on it at certain points.
What price did you pay?
It wasn't directly within our like Tsevet, but like around us, we saw like just stuff happening.
Really close to you. Which is scary,
close calls, and it's people
loud
that
booms every second overhead.
Yeah, exactly. It's people that I knew and that I met from like just the war itself, but injury and just death and stuff. So so that was so that was the second Seva, and then we came out again, and then again like the intensity just rose a little bit more because they just they trusted us more. Like, I don't know what it was. They just like felt like, okay, at this point, like we were just considering them as like basically. By the last round, we were under the tzakap, which is like the tzevek rav of like a pluga. So like we were basically a machlaka within a sadir pluga nachal.
Wow, which is a high intensity level.
Yeah, at that point we're like the last round we're going in like pretty much by foot, like with tequila.
Wow,
like,
and you're with all these like 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
They're training for this for 8 months.
Yeah, no, at this point, like we've definitely been at it for a while. Like we've definitely got in better shape and like we're mentally just, more like focused and aligned. But one thing I will mention that was a completely separate like conversation, but it's the transition of going in and out. So like there's two like main transitions. There's the transition of like you're in the strip, you come home for 2 days, then you go back in. And then there's transition of like finishing up immediately and going home and then just knowing that you're getting called up. So that transition was like atrocious. If anything, I kind of wish that like I didn't go home, like back to my parents' house. Like I just like stayed in for the full 2 months. It just made it hard because you go in, you go out, you like remember what life is like, and you're like, wait, like I'm about to go back in there, So that was pretty tough. But so you asked like, when did I write the when did I write my letter?
The
letter was written right before the last, like the part 3 of the first sevev. Like I had this like really weird, I had this really bad feeling that I wasn't coming back, a bad one. And I think a lot of that has to do with like coming out and you speak with your family and you speak with your friends and you realize where you're going, what you just did and what you're going back into. And it's like, what the hell is going on? It's like, it's not normal.
When you were home, essentially Julia was in America. So where did you go?
Yeah. So I went to my parents. That's where I was based. We tried a couple of times to put a family from the South in our apartment.
Yeah. Wow.
Good for you.
Anyway, so in the first round I did go home. And even your own family, your parents who in a way understand you more than most people on the planet, like just don't get you. The only people I wanted to be with were the people that I was in my tzevek, and I'd come home and there was like this sense of like, and I love my parents dearly. There was this sense of like shock and excitement and fear and like anxiety when I came home. It was like
high emotions.
Yeah. Crazy high emotions. Like I came home and like
across the spectrum.
Yeah. And it's also the balance of like, they want to ask questions, but I don't want to say anything. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to come home, just take a shower.
It's a little lonely to come home and like not feel like anyone understands you.
Yeah, it really, really is, and it sucked. And we didn't have that experience of like me coming home to you and nobody understanding me. Like you're living in this like limbo of like, okay, I'm physically here and I know I'm going back in a couple of days, but it's like, what are we like? What's going on? What are we dealing here? So if anything, it was actually a little easier. Like I said, that Julie and the kids weren't there, but obviously it was tough not to be with them. But there was a level of like complexity. It was tough coming back to my parents. I remember after the second time I came out, so we came out on Shabbat, and we were ready to let go Shabbat afternoon, and like I drove home on Shabbat, and like we got the heter from all the rabbis or whatever it was, but I drove home back to my parents on Shabbat, got home like a little bit before Shabbat was over, so like I didn't give my parents a warning that I was that I was walking through the door.
They must have fainted.
All I'll tell you is the setting is like this, and for those of you that know my father, God bless him, my dad is sitting there like they had friends over. My dad is sitting there in a blanket, really in his boxers, and like with a blanket over him because some friend came over. And I walk in, and my dad stands up, and just for the excitement, his like the blanket falls, he's out in his boxers. My dad's a good-looking guy and has a great body, and it's just like it was like high emotions, very overwhelming, and all my dad wanted to do was make me a steak, and all I wanted to do was go upstairs and take a shower. But like, I mean, I love a good steak. So, he graciously made me the steak and it was great. And I'm saying this in the most loving way. Pops, I love you. You're the best. And I appreciate the steak like crazy. But after we finish the steak, I go upstairs to shower. And I'm literally like, the shower's on. I'm ready to go in. And there's a knock on the door. And I go, hello? He goes, Al. Like, hey, what's up? He goes, hey, you got to come out here. I'm like, right now? He goes, yeah. And I open the door and he's got like the bone of the steak. He's like, you got to try this. This is the best part. And like, so I know his intentions were so pure. Like, he just, exactly. And all they want to do is give. But like, I just want the shower, you know? But I ate that. I ate that piece of steak and it was incredible. So, I definitely appreciate it. But again, that's just an overall feeling. You yourself don't really know what you've been through and you're still pressing yourself. And then you have to spend time with people who don't understand you and you have to
don't understand yourself. Yeah, exactly. So the steak is a great segue. I want to talk about how did Julia accept, how were you able to accept help? How was it feeling? I know the Tel Aviv community was amazing.
Shout out to the Old North community. Yeah. You guys are incredible.
But Alana always says that it's hard to always be on the recipient end, always be receiving help.
I think I'm lucky that I was with my own family for the first 4 months.
Yeah.
I didn't feel bad that my mom was making me dinner every night. It was amazing.
Really lucky. Not everyone had that.
Yeah, physically I had all my needs met. Definitely. 126 even sent me stuff to my parents' house in Connecticut.
That's so nice.
They were incredible.
126, Ben Yehuda 126, by126.org.
Yeah.
To touch on the point for a second, and this is actually something that you and I are going through now that we're back in Israel obviously a while now, and I've been off to Miluim twice, and there's been that now I'm coming back home, and it's coming back home to you. And given now the unit that I'm in, which is the Achsam, which is basically convoys going in and out of the strip almost every night, and not necessarily being in the strip for, say, 2-3 weeks at a time, I was much more accessible, on my phone. So I was finished a week ago, but you had some really difficult nights with the kids.
Yeah, it was Sukkot, and my kids were not in gone.
Yeah.
Alone with 2 kids.
Oh my God.
Having to entertain them 24/7.
So
you could be driven mad.
Right. So then what happens is that you then reach out to me because,
You're my person.
I'm your person, but what I'm we've tried.
I knew you couldn't help me. But I also, you're my person, and if I'm going to complain, it's going to be to you.
Correct.
Did you feel like sometimes you were not in sync?
So I tried my best to even sometimes just ask her straight out, what are you looking for? A solution or support?
When I was venting to Alex and he was responding to me, I felt like he was just quoting a therapist or something, and which was fine, and it was what I needed to hear. I knew there was nothing for him to do.
Yeah, and I at least on the other side of the phone feel so helpless. It's crushed. It's infuriating almost.
But then when it comes to the solution side, it's and you say this often, is you don't want to feel like you're not capable.
Right. Here, for example, it was Sukkot. I was alone with 2 kids. I was ready to get out of the house and do something with them. It's Chol. Everybody's out there having fun. And I feel like I can't get anywhere with my 2 little kids and do something fun and exciting, go to a farm, let's say. I don't drive and I'm not doing that by myself.
Yet.
I mean, I have friends also, but I was also exhausted from being with them at the same time wanting to do something really fun. I needed Alex around, and I just started venting to him, and I knew it wasn't the right time. There was literally nothing he can do, but he's my person, and I vent to him.
You need to.
And he's you
need to unload the emotional burden.
Yeah. And he was I hear you. I see that this is really hard for you. And just very classic, therapist type.
No, but it wasn't, but there was that side to it. But once I realized that I sort of had enough of trying to be
and then you were okay.
I was okay, so why don't you do X? Why don't you call this friend? I know every friend wants to help you now. Just reach out. And like you said, it's being on the recipient end. Sometimes that's hard.
You want her
or you're
help.
I'm texting this babysitter. She'll be there at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
But then I felt no, I can do that myself. Don't undermine my capabilities. I'm just trying to vent to you.
Right. And then you're saying, you just feel helpless and want to help. But this is the only way you could help, by trying to take some stuff off of your plate, take initiative and make things happen for you so that you don't have to deal with because some asking for things are hard.
Were you hesitant to ask for help?
I think I've gotten a lot better at it throughout this year.
Yeah.
A lot better. My problem is my kids' separation anxiety. They don't really lend themselves to
just any
cooperating with a babysitter. Yeah.
Totally.
Which is a big struggle.
Especially a stream of different babysitters. This person has to help, then that person.
Even my in-laws came the other week, and Sophia held on to my leg for dear life. Right. She loves them.
Right.
And when she was out with them, she was amazing.
Right.
But getting them to separate from me has been really hard.
Yeah. It's so hard.
So when the community asks what they can do, a lot of times it's meals or, little pick-me-ups here and there, or babysitting at night when my kids are sleeping, and that's everything.
No, because kids consistency is so important for them. When there's
especially now, they need it so badly, and
people walk my dog. That's been great.
Right. Nice. Woods doesn't need consistency.
Thank you, Ariel and Joel.
That's so nice of them.
They're the best.
But anyway, so I've learned how to ask for help, and it's a very important skill to have.
Right. Even the Ganenet said to me, Adam's Ganenet said to me today, he's just so much happier since you're home.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How hard is that to hear when like you have to go back out again?
I mean, you know yourself, it sucks. You know, it's very tough. And again, even within the mix of all that, when it's all said and done and I come home, Julia doesn't know what I just experienced. I don't really know what she just experienced. I know my kids. I see their development rapidly,
which is crazy.
Which is nuts.
The difference between a 3-month-old Adam in the beginning of the war, it's a 6-month-old.
Which Julia didn't even touch on this yet. The first few months I was gone, so Adam, we didn't yet. We were supposed to start sleep training for Adam, like pretty much around that time.
And then that went out the window.
Yeah, and I mean, Julia, this was all you.
He slept in my arms from when he was 12 weeks old until he was 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah, we were in America almost 4 or 5 months.
Every time you tried to start sleep training, like you were just so worn out from.
I was so worn out. I couldn't go through the process. I couldn't listen to him cry. It was very triggering, which is a topic in its own. Triggers.
Totally.
And he was attached to me. And then Alex comes home at the end of the first round, and Adam has no idea who he is. He's terrified of him. Now they're inseparable. Now Adam is obsessed with Alex.
That's so hard. Was that really hard when you came back after the first round?
You know, the truth is,
you didn't connect to him. He was 3 months old when you left. He was 8 months when you came back.
Yeah, I think I was, at the time, I was obviously equally excited to see everybody, but I think in the forefront of my mind, it was like, Sophia.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Protective of her.
Yeah.
I would send him updates all the time. Like, you don't understand how cute this kid is. He's the best.
Right,
he's adorable.
He's
Look at what he's doing. Yeah. And there was a big disconnect there. Which
it was
something to
it was so exciting to
changed
see.
Drastically.
It was so exciting to see Julia and Adam and Sophia, but I think just Sophia understood the least and just knew I was gone. So she didn't understand, to me, like, to be able to, I don't know, I guess reconnect with her and just.
We have videos of the first time Alex came home after the first ever of the Gamba show video.
Oh, yeah.
You could see Sophia's excitement.
Yeah. Like, she understood. And, like, exactly, she understood that I was back. And that I knew that I wasn't going back. At least if we were going back, it would be all together. So I felt like a just sigh of relief that we could just kind of go back to being normal. So yeah, I mean, I guess going back to the timeline, I was saying that when I wrote the letter, that was like right before I went in for the third time. That was like for sure the most intense. I think like 8 or 9 days of like that first seven. A lot of siyat d'shmaya, a lot of just relying on my friends in there with me, helping me through it. Also because I'll just share one piece of it that we were around the Dar Shufach area. We were waiting on our last mission, which was by far the most intense mission we had gone on yet. And I actually remember we were sitting in our base camp within Gaza waiting to go out for the mission. We were supposed to go. Long story short, it got pushed off. But before I realized it got pushed off, I knew that like, okay, we're getting out the strip after this. Like, we're done. So I'm like, I want to book my flight now. Like, I want to get the second I'm out of here, I want to go back to Julia and the kids. So I remember I'm in Gaza. I borrowed my officer's phone and I'm trying to get onto El Al's website, trying to book a flight.
And they're like, no,
from
from
Gaza.
here you can't.
Yeah.
Oh, they knew you were
from Gaza. No.
You got IPS.
No, it's just it was just the internet was so slow, and I ended up coordinating with like my mom, Julia's mom, to try to book the flight, and I find the flight, and then I'm told that the mission's being pushed off for like 24 hours, 48 hours. So I'm spending more time in, so I'm like, oh crap, I can't even book this flight. Like, so at that point in my mind, I checked out. I'm going home. Like, I'm booking my flight, like I'm ready. And that was a massive mistake because it took me out of like the focus.
Oh, it's so hard.
And like add to that, it was like by far like the most intense mission that like it was just like it was just a lot of emotions flying, as you can probably hear.
Can we talk about death for a second?
Always.
Of course, it's part of life.
It's always
such a strong feeling that I had that it sounds so crazy, but I'm sure it's relatable. Is like, if chas v'shalom Alex would die in the war,
yeah,
he'd be dead, and like it wouldn't affect him because he's dead, But at the end of the day, what's left behind is his broken family,
right?
Yeah,
which hurts me the most. It's not so much about me leaving,
right? No, it was a feeling that I carried throughout, and I still carry every time you go back in. Every time you go back in, which is like, if you die, okay, it doesn't affect you, which is so crazy.
No. I think I felt the same thing.
But it's like, you'd leave behind a broken family who has to carry it for the rest of their lives.
Totally.
Right.
And so, like, I don't know. It goes back to that conversation of, like, how much do you put yourself at risk? And, like, is it selfish of you to do that?
Totally.
And it's just, like...
It's an impossible decision.
Yeah. It's just crazy that we have to face these dilemmas. I mean, recently, in Alex's last round, 3 people from his pluga were killed. And that's just like, it hit home. It's like, that could have been him.
Terrifying.
And then for Alex, like, how do you go back the next time?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I don't know.
You have to have so much resolve and so much
And you have
faith.
to believe. Yeah, you have to believe, and you have to believe in what you're doing.
Totally. Which is not always easy.
Yeah.
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 Because the system's not always perfect.
For sure.
What were you saying about triggers? That's a whole conversation. Have things been triggering you?
PTSD and triggers.
Tell us.
I think for me, I've come to like accept what I saw for the most part.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, I'll get into some of it. But I think for the most part, because for those first few weeks for me were so like emotionally and mentally draining, balancing like just like trying to be there for my family, but also just being so far away from them was tough. And like, you heard it in my voice, it was a struggle. And something, well, that, you hear it in my voice, I'm working through it. Still am. But remember with the car ride?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Go into this. It was one of like the last car trips before it was in that week that I knew I was going back, and we were coming back from, I don't know, an animal with the kids. And, as kids do, they're in the car. Adam, at the time at least, he's gotten better, but he was horrible in the car. He gets in the car, he just screams, hates the car seat.
This was in Israel?
This was in Wilton, Connecticut before I got called up for the first round.
Oh, it was right before the first round.
It was in between his flights.
Yeah, okay.
Flights. And the kids just start crying in the car. And then Julia started crying in the car. And talk about helplessness and not being in control. Like, I'm driving. I can't even do anything. Yeah. And I'm leaving them. Like, that to me was just, and I actually sense that like anytime I'm in the car and the kids start crying, like it's a trigger. Like I get triggered. I feel out of control. I feel helpless. Like it's something I am aware of and I'm working through, but it's very much there. But
interestingly enough, we were out to dinner with friends a couple weeks ago, and you were telling them about this trigger, and they have the same exact thing. Every time the kid cries in the car, the husband gets really triggered.
Yeah, crying triggers me too.
Yeah.
So really hard. Yeah, so for me, it's a transition of coming in and out, going from one reality to the next, and like trying to like make sense of it all.
And you settle back in, and then you get called up again.
Right.
And then it takes time to adjust. When you get home,
right.
You adjust, and then you get called up again. Right. It's like
but
never-ending cycle.
It's a never-ending adjustment, especially the first time you're home. Yeah. It's like so intense, and then it's so like...
Which is also a thing, that this isn't the same war we were fighting in October 23. Like, it's been a year. It's very different now. I mean, you guys can speak to that better than I can.
It feels different.
What triggers you at this point, if you still have them?
I think when you get triggered, it triggers me.
That's fair.
And if both kids are acting out at the same time.
Right.
There's that panic of like, what if Alex wasn't here and I'm with these kids?
Yeah, but sometimes I also feel like it's sometimes it's easier for you to handle it when I'm not around, Like sometimes I feel like when I'm home, whether it's in
also,
between a seventh or... What do you notice?
That I like when you're not around, and I'm like, I'm so proud of the way I parent when you're not around. And then there are times where I just have to like snap for like 3 seconds, like tell somebody to stop what you're doing. Like which is so
unlike
characteristic of me to yell. But there will be like 2 seconds where I'll let it out and then snap back in. And like that, I really want to work on eliminating, because you're going to be emailing him again and again. And that's something that's got to go. But that's like a huge trigger.
Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily unhealthy to let things out.
No, it's not. But I don't want to let it out.
But also, I think a big like struggle that you have when I'm in Miluim, and it's really like when I'm coming back and forth from like during the setup, I come home for a couple of days, is that you get into a certain routine with the kids. You have structure. You figure it out on your own. You're sort of like in survival mode, and like you kick gas.
When I send you texts like, wow, both kids are asleep and it's 8:00, that never happens when you're home. I'm like, I got this. And then you come home and I'm like, wow, everything just went to hell.
Exactly. Because
I need to hear more about this, because it's so hard to reintegrate just from a logistical perspective.
Yeah.
Division of labor.
Yeah. Okay. When Alex is in Miluim, I have a very strict routine, which honestly, we're pretty routine people in general. So we have it down. But when he's not around, it's both the kids are in the bath at the same time. Take Sophia out, plop her in front of Peppa Pig. Adam, I'm putting to sleep while she's watching TV, and then switch. And then I go and I put Sophia to sleep, and by 8 o'clock, they're both asleep. Right. At home, there's a lot more factors when Alex is around.
Well, it's also when I'm around during mealing and when I'm around after mealing, like in between the sevens.
Right, you come home and Sophia's used to watching Peppa Pig when you're not home, and then all of a sudden when we say, no, you can't watch TV after the bath, you're going to sleep. She's like, what? But I would do it when mommy was home.
Right.
Yeah. And to me, it's like I'm there for a couple days.
In the mix.
To me, it's like I'm home for a couple days and I just want to spend as much time with Julie and the kids as possible. But then I leave and then I just messed up their entire, everything that Julia's worked towards for the last week and a half. Yeah. Which is, I'm sure is a massive struggle.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of goes back into like,
as a couple, you have to be co-CEOs. You're managing the whole operation. And like, you're forgetting how to do it with each other.
It's almost like...
Alana always is like, at least with us, like we would forget to tell each other things because we were living separately. Like, oh, you didn't tell me you had this thing the next night. Or like we just forgot how to coordinate.
Yeah. I almost feel like I come back home and it's my home, but I don't, I feel like I have to be like sensitive
you're a guest
around...
in your own home.
You have to be sensitive around like Julie and the kids for those few days before I go back because like I don't... As much as I want to be a help, I also don't want to be a burden. Yeah.
Like, for example, when Alex is not around, I take both kids to Gone in the double stroller with Woods attached, and I take the 3 of them out, and that's it. When Alex is home, it's different. He bikes Adam to Gone. Then he comes back and he gets Sophia.
And they're like, wait 1 second, this isn't how...
And they're confused.
Yeah. So hard.
Yeah.
I keep cutting you off, but...
Well, I think we were talking about just, I guess, PTSD.
You said
the close calls. Yeah. So there were a few operations that, given where we were within a certain operation or strip, was a little more dangerous. I mean, you're constantly under the threat of sniper and RPGs, and there's not too much close, like face-to-face combat. I did have one interaction with like a Julia with a chain of like Nukba terrorists. I was guarding a post and I actually just came down from guarding a post, and just so you understand, you have missions, and then when you finish those missions, you come back and you're sitting on your base within Gaza and they're waiting for your next mission. So like when you're on that base, obviously it's constantly being guarded, but you let your guard down a little bit. And so what happens is we were together with one of Nachal's sniper platoons, and he basically walks in with, as he's brushing, like this, you just get so used to this reality that it doesn't even like phase you when like you see something dangerous or like you sense something dangerous, and he's literally walking in brushing his teeth. All the guys, it's like 8 a.m. Everyone's sleeping. I couldn't fall asleep. I was like, had enough. And he walks in, he's brushing, he's like, I think I see some terrorists, right?
Oh my God.
And I like wake up my officer because I was like kind of sitting up. I sit up quickly to see what's going on. And like as I stand up, I look up and I see like a small frame in the window, and I see like 3 guys wearing black. And like it was such a quick that I didn't have the time to even like grab my negative and like just start shooting. It was like, guys, get the out of the room, like. Because I saw an RPG, lo and behold, it was shot like a building. Yeah, the building over. There was a Nagmash sitting outside, and like there were some guys from Givati just sitting on top of the Nagmash. Or it was Nagmash, like whatever. Right? And thank God it actually missed them, and it would have been horribly ruined. But it went over their heads, like hit the building. Thank God no one was in the building.
Right, it was a huge room. You're all shocked.
I think that experience actually of seeing terrorists and no one else from my side but seeing terrorists in itself was kind of like. You're on your own, kid. But at least in that specific hero, I quickly just like yelled everyone to get out the room, and like, I mean, again, thank God, a million times nobody was hurt, but like that experience in itself was just like a close call. But yeah, there were a few like situations where there was this soldier from Handasa, Uriah Yaakov, Shemikum Damam. He was killed like probably 50 meters. Flashbacks. He was killed, pretty much right in front of us, with an RPG. I mean, that was the first one. There's another experience where we were conquering flashbacks. We were conquering a Hamas training camp together with some guys from Nachal, and these guys actually, in a previous round in Shati, we did like a Marav together, and like I got to know them pretty well, and just happened to have been while we were doing like street coat, we were like sweeping a certain area within the training camp, and like a bomb detonated on them, and like it was probably, put it this way, like you just see like a helmet fly in the air, you know. It was too close for comfort.
Horrifying.
Yeah, a few more, but like that was just like I guess a sense of it.
And you were
like,
journaling, and then you read the journal to Julia.
Yeah, right. So I guess to sum it up, those were like some of the experiences, and I guess also just kind of dealing with the, you know, just the constant PTSD and I guess the triggers. But I came home and like I definitely felt like it was important to share with Julia whatever she wanted to hear, and like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I had like I had like a piece of paper and a journal. The piece of paper was every day I just wrote down highlights of what happened that day. It could be like what I ate, like some meal that like one of our guys put together with like olive oil from like some home in like Jabalia, together with a little bit of, you know, tuna and bean, whatever it was, you know, just like the 5-star meals that we'd make in Gaza, to like a funny story, to, you know, an incident. And then I had like a journal where like I just kind of wrote down my thoughts. And as time went on, I definitely, like you spoke about that, I definitely like came to accept that more, and I wrote a lot about that. Yeah, I wrote about a lot of different things. I think I wrote a lot about like, obviously your perspective changes a lot once you experience these kind of things, and like sort of what you would want to kind of maybe do differently, you know, with your life. And I think a lot of positive outcome has come from these experiences as well, like for myself, and it's a continuous growth process. But anyways, I came back and I told Julia whenever she's ready, I'm happy to share whatever
you
want to hear.
Before you wanted right away.
Yeah, I wanted to know everything.
We actually couldn't find a window
Once
to
it
do.
was, yeah, right. Once it was, I knew it was said and done, and that he was out of danger. I wanted to know everything.
All right. I remember the first.
But I did appreciate you hiding all the danger while you were there. Like, remember, Sam, one day I got a picture of Alex on the beach in Jabalia with our brother-in-law's brother. And
it is
like,
in Shati,
yeah.
He was in the 460 Brigade or sometime where he at the time just finishing up his like basic training or whatever.
And I would
found
get
him in
texts.
Gaza?
Yeah, like, so it got to a point that within along the coast that Israel had such strong control that like they started to set up like real proper just like army bases that like people felt a little too comfortable to walk around with like, you know, either without a helmet or without their vests on, and they ended up like conducting like ceremonies. Like,
yeah, there was a tekes.
Yeah, it was a tekes. So Max like a
tekes kumta.
Yeah, something like that. He finished his training, so like in the strip. And I'm not, you know, I don't want to, for many reasons, I'm not going to get too much into the details, but in the same area, probably a kilometer closer to where like Israel, where we had held down our point in the strip at that point, there was another ceremony that happened, and the ceremony got hit with an RPG.
Holy shit!
And 13. Thank God nobody was killed, but one of my friends, where we were set up on our base camp, we were out on a mission at the time, but one of my friends stayed back, and he was sitting out. We were staying at the Blue Beach Hotel, and he was sitting out, just kind of doing his thing, and all of a sudden he literally sees like an RPG zoom by, and just a massive explosion where the ceremony was taking place. So like, yeah, there's definitely a sense at some points where like we felt too comfortable, and obviously it was like a slap in the face to everyone to like, okay, you gotta.
So that was this background of that picture, but I get a picture one day of Max and Alex on the beach in Gaza, and I get texts all day long, like, how's Alex doing? Have you heard from him? And I'm like forwarding this picture around. I'm like, he's on the beach. He's okay. Fine. He's fine. I was like, he's not even wearing a helmet. He looks like he's okay.
Yeah.
So I can sleep at night.
We're sleeping.
Right.
Okay.
But then he comes home and I hear that story.
Right.
I'm like, thank God I didn't know that at the time.
But you
now
could
you're
sleep
home.
at night in quotes, but really Adam was waking up and everything.
Every hour. Yeah.
Still hard. Okay.
Every hour for 5 minutes.
I think I asked you this question when I first came back and we were having breakfast at the table.
Yeah. Like, what did you really think I was doing?
Out of 10, like, what did you really think?
Oh, yeah. You said out of 10, what danger level do you think I was experiencing? And I was like, like a 6.
I think you said 4.
I either said 4 or 6. Doesn't matter. You're like, okay. It was like an 11. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good that you hid it from me until you were home and then we discussed it.
It took a few days for us to find a window just to sit together and like actually talk it out. But we discussed it and yeah.
Yeah, and then we talked about it and I was like in complete awe of you that you are able to do the things that you did. And I was proud. And it's awesome, but like it's life-changing and it's insane. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll never understand you and you'll never understand me. And that's something that we're going to have to live with and deal with forever.
So what other moments of like you had this moment where you sat down, you read the journal, you're talking about the danger. If you had any other sit downs like that where you're trying to understand each other, rebridge gaps?
I think we have check-ins, but I don't think we have like the last 2 sevevs. I didn't like necessarily journal, also because like I said, I had moved on. Like a few reasons why I was comfortable sharing everything with Julia is because I knew that after I left that round, that for a few reasons that Pluga was not going to be continuing on the same capacity, and I was actually trying to do my best to actually get back to the Yachsam, which in my mind was actually a little less intense. It wasn't like you're not in the strip for weeks at a time. You're coming in and out. Your missions are set up differently. It has its own level of challenges, which if there's even enough time, we'll get to it. But I kind of knew that I was done with that level of intensity, so I felt more comfortable sharing. I remember asking you if you wanted to...
I don't want to read the letter. I'll read it when you're dead. Hopefully we won't get there.
Fantastic.
120.
Good to know. So I remember asking you that because to me, I'm thinking like, yeah, like that's it. Like, I'm done with the danger. And then like, but Julie's like, no, I just don't, And I totally understand that. I still have it. But yeah, we'll see. You won't need to read it.
Yeah, hopefully I'll never read it.
But I guess just to quickly talk about the last 2 sevevs. So after that first round, we actually stayed in the States for about a month. And then I got to a point where I wanted to just kind of go back to where I was supposed to be originally. And I was still in touch with my old officer, like, maybe talking to them about getting put into their unit so that we have somewhere to be and have a little more stability in a very unstable world. And I called my officer and like back and forth, okay, letting him know that we're ready. And he's like, okay, great. Our Tsav is like this Wednesday. It was like Sunday. It was like right before Pesach. I'm like, I remember cursing at Peruti, like, what the hell did he just do to me? Like, So like then at that point, I remember your parents were here. I only went to the base during Chol Hamoed or one of the others. I went down and then I just transitioned into this very new type of service where I was delivering reinforcements into the strip. And I think the level of challenge there is more just like you're constantly, when you're not in, you're out. Like you're on base, but you're on your phone. You're waiting for the next mission, whatever it is. So you're much more in tune with what's going on at home. You're much more in tune with what's going on at work. You're much more in tune with life. And like, you keep on jumping back in from one reality to the next. I'm sure you could relate to this. You're constantly going in and out for missions, and it's like in itself like this crazy like mind.
It's so hard. You're never in one place.
Yeah,
you're never fully 2 feet in one place.
Correct.
1 foot here, 1 foot there.
Correct.
Did you sense his like in the beginning? You sense his not presence, and then also now you're back in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, but not in a way that makes me frustrated. I actually just feel bad for you and everyone who's going through that constant transition. Right. Like it really is difficult. And I just feel bad for this whole generation of men who are trying to work and also keep getting called up every 2 months.
Right. Like
people who are in school and can't finish their degree, like everything. Yeah. Every level.
But it affects you too. Like and I never had to deal,
I didn't have to deal with the in and out that people were dealing with for the last year until Pesach time. That was the first time that we were back in Israel and you were called up and
that
my parents went home.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And I'm like dealing with that for the first time.
Yeah.
But that's where our community stepped up and it was great.
Been incredible. I also like after the first round, I took some time to sort of reevaluate things, like just perspective of like how much time and focus and energy I want to be putting into, family. But it's like, the war we're fighting now is a very different war than we were fighting on October 7th. And as much as, like I said, we obviously, the overall job has not been finished. The agenda, I feel like, has changed. Like Julia mentioned, 3 guys from my Pluga were killed.
You were mostly, like, supportive when he had to go to funerals, and I'm sure he was out of it, processing.
Yeah,
you understood you needed to step up, even though he was home at the time.
Yeah, we had a horrible virus, so I was actually home. But like that in itself was actually tough because my guys were experiencing like the night of the attack happened, the ambush, the attack happened in the morning. That night we still had to fulfill our misimo. So my machlaka went in. So they sort of they sort of ripped the band-aid and they just went right in. And like I was home for another few days and I came back and I'm like the first time I went in, I just felt very alone, like as if like wow, like I'm about to go back to the place where, the scene of the crime. But more than that, like the frustration is that, like this round we went into Jabalia for the third time. And
like, why are you still
like, why are we? Yeah,
we did everything.
Yeah, and the same place where I mentioned before that there was that Iruah where we were clearing that training base camp, and I had, two guys that I had gotten to know from Nachal that were basically blown to bits. You go back to the same place, and three more friends die. Like, what are we doing here?
It's so disheartening. Julie, were you extra frightened? Him going back in right
Yeah, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah,
From that point on, anytime he went in for a mission, I couldn't sleep that night until I got a text that he was out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we of course took a lot more like precautionary measures before going in after that.
But still,
Iruah happened for sure, and like,
still, you never know.
Right.
Like, you're in a war zone,
Right.
you just don't know.
Yeah. So the first time I went back in, it was actually with a guy who was in the Iruah where the Uri war machine was killed, and he was like basically next to him, and we're driving in our Hummer past the area where the Iruah took place. And they point to the trees like, oh yeah, that's where the Mitan blew up, and that's where Uri was shot, and that's where Netanyahu got hit by the RPG. It was just like
processing it, but also terrifying.
And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking like, yeah, but I was here and I did that.
Yeah.
Like, what is like why? I mean, there's so many feelings.
Then when you were driving home the other day from Miloim to come home, you're on what, Kvish Arba?
Yeah.
And there was terrorists.
The terrorist attack.
These terrorists that just like shot at random cars. Alex was literally 20 minutes from there. Like, he was driving past it.
Yeah, but I think I remember you were like freaking out. I'm like, okay, but I'm not there. You know. And to me, it's like you come from Gaza. Like, if I'm not there, like if I'm not the one being shot at on Kvish Arba, like to me, it's just like then it's like it's normal.
Okay.
Like I've had too many close calls. So like,
by the way, how have you managed like a different fear levels, like when sirens happen?
Ooh.
Julia, are you more...
Sirens don't scare me anymore.
Okay.
She's more scared of flying.
But like terrorist attack stuff, Alex, you're more chill. And
I encouraged Alex to get a gun.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a gun...
He's not a gun guy, but I think it's really important.
We're going through the same thing.
Especially living in Tel Aviv, living right off of Dizengoff, where there have been multiple attacks.
Yeah, even before the war.
In the last couple of years.
So you just never know. Like, you're better to be safe than sorry, and that's an unfortunate
even on
reality.
That highway, if you had a gun and you were 20 minutes ahead.
How do you feel about bringing a gun into your home with the kids, stuff like that, carrying it around, always being on, always being responsible?
I don't like it. I don't want that.
Yeah, I feel weird about that.
I don't want the responsibility, but again, like, I'd rather...
I think that's the reality we live in.
But what are the goals going forward as a couple? How are you reconnecting? How are you staying connected?
Just staying on the same page. You have to communicate a ton about where the other person is. I mean, I don't know. It's constantly staying in communication and being open with each other, not holding back, and making time for each other, while also letting each other get back into life. Like, we each went through something really big.
Totally.
I kind of had to I didn't put work on hold, but I definitely, it takes a backseat to life right now. And same with Alex. So we have to give each other space, but also be able to come back and connect.
Right.
Totally.
I also think it's like setting a certain level of expectation. And I think it's, for the most part, on the lower end of the spectrum. Both like on a personal level and also like as a couple, especially when you first like come back, it's like understand that like we both just went through something and we don't understand what that something was. And we're both processing it and we're both trying to figure it out. So like, I know you want me to, do X, Y, and Z. And like, before I come home from Miloim, I'm always like, I'm going to start getting up at 5. I'm going to do, and then you get home and you're just like, whoa. Like,
I'm tired.
Oh my, yeah. Like you just like,
it's hard.
Yeah. Like it's a process to get back into. So like, first of all, you got to be kind to yourself.
Totally.
But then also understand that you are still living under a roof with someone else and you are in a partnership and you have to, be able to manage the expectation of that of your partner,
and don't let yourself fall into the excuses of like, I'm so tired, I need a break, I need this. Like, you have to kind of not let yourself fall into that trap.
There's
also, I feel like you have to be
also be
kind
and
be forgiving.
Also be kind to yourself and to each other.
Yeah,
and remember that we just went through trauma and we're still going through it.
Right.
It's a balance.
It's also reflecting on yourself as like your own individual. Like, I try not to like victimize myself to like the situation. Like, oh, because I was just like in war, then like now I can't work for the rest of my life. It doesn't help you. It just hurts you.
We've had to reevaluate ourselves and our relationship, and when you do that, it makes you stronger.
Yeah. Like you reoriented on the things that matter. Yeah.
You have like a new perspective.
Yafa.
Yeah. Thanks, Hamas.
Love you guys.
So much light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So much.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you
Thanks
for coming
having
on.
us. For couples therapy.
This was couples therapy for the public right
I
there.
think a lot of people are going to relate and feel comforted and relate to the struggles and the hope.
Yeah.
So you killed it. Thank you. Come again.
Thanks
for
giving us
having
the
us.
platform to share.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. I hope you felt connected. Please reach out. notforheroespodcast@gmail.com. Music from Chaverim Mishar Yafo, the Friends of Jaffa Gate. Please check them out. They are the best.